They were inseparable from the start. Jake and Emma had that kind of friendship everyone envies, an unbreakable bond that seemed like it would last forever. But one ordinary night, something totally unexpected happens. Kiss. A moment of pure impulse that changes everything. Jake, carrying a hidden love, and Emma, completely caught off guard, suddenly find themselves drowning in emotions they never saw coming. Now, with jealous glances, buried secrets, and pressures threatening to tear apart everything they've built, they're faced with a truth they never expected. Can one kiss really destroy years of friendship? Or, in the midst of all this chaos, will they find something even greater? Amid parties, misunderstandings, and the constant fear of losing each other, Jake and Emma are about to learn that sometimes the biggest risk is not taking one at all. Get ready to feel every emotion to the fullest. Because nothing is what it seems, and everything can change in the blink of an eye. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the park as I sat on the swings, the chains squeaking softly with each gentle sway. Felt like no time had passed since Jake and I were kids, racing down these very paths, laughter echoing through the trees. The scent of fresh grass filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of popcorn from a nearby vendor. I looked over at Jake, who was perched on the swing next to mine, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Remember that time we tried to build a treehouse?" he asked, his voice laced with nostalgia. I chuckled, shaking my head. How could I forget? We ended up with a pile of wood and a whole lot of splinters. Jake leaned forward, laughter bubbling up. "And your dad found us trying to climb it. He looked at us like we were two lost puppies." "Yeah, he practically dragged us back to the house," I replied, a smile tugging at my lips. "But at least we had fun trying." We exchanged stories, each memory igniting a spark of joy. Beneath the surface, an unspoken tension lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. Perhaps it was the way Jake looked at me, or the way our hands brushed against each other when we laughed too hard. I tried to dismiss it, focusing instead on the warmth of the moment. But my heart betrayed me. As the sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the ground, our playful banter faded into a comfortable silence. I could see Jake's brow furrow slightly, his usual carefree demeanor replaced with an air of contemplation. I bit my lip, unsure of what to say, when suddenly, the moment was interrupted by a group of friends who came barreling into the park, laughter spilling from their lips. "Hey Jake, Emma!" one of them shouted. It was Mia, a mutual friend who always seemed to know how to light up a room. "We're heading to that party tonight. You two coming?" Jake glanced at me. Flicker of something. Was it anxiety? Crossing his face. "Yeah, I guess so," replied, his voice lacking its usual enthusiasm. I nodded, trying to match his energy, but my stomach twisted at the thought of seeing him with other people, especially with Mia. Party was bound to be chaotic, and I feared what would happen when he mingled with the crowd. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a rush of nerves. Party was in full swing by the time we arrived. The music thumped through the air, laughter filled every corner. I watched as Jake seamlessly slipped into the crowd, chatting and laughing, his charm drawing others in like moths to a flame. I felt a pang of jealousy twist in my stomach, especially when I saw him leaning a little too close to Mia, their laughter mingling in a way that made my heart race for all the wrong reasons. "Are you okay?" Mia asked, her voice cutting through my thoughts as she leaned in closer, concern etched on her face. "Yeah, just enjoying the show," I replied, forcing a smile. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was an outsider looking in, feeling that intensified with every laugh shared between Jake and Mia. With a deep breath, I decided I needed to confront this feeling head-on. I needed to talk to Jake, to understand what was happening between us. I found him in a quieter corner of the party, away from the music and the crowd, and my heart raced as I approached. He was leaning against the wall, his eyes scanning the room, and for a moment, I hesitated. "Hey, can we talk?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He turned, surprise flickering across his face. "Sure, what's up?" I've been feeling a bit weird tonight," I admitted, my words tumbling out. "I don't know if it's the party or if it's something else." Jake opened his mouth to respond. Before he could say anything, I felt a surge of courage mixed with alcohol. "Can I kiss you?" I blurted out, surprising myself. He paused, his eyes widening, and before I could process his reaction, I impulsively leaned in, pressing my lips against his. The moment felt electric, full of pent-up feelings and uncertainty, but just as quickly as it began, it ended. A loud laugh from a nearby group broke the spell, and I pulled away, shocked by what had just happened. "What was that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, confusion etched on his face. I don't know," I stammered, my heart racing. I wanted to see what it felt like." "Emma?" he began, but the noise of the party drowned him out, leaving us both reeling in the aftermath of what had just transpired. I stepped back, my heart racing in my chest, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions that had just erupted between us. The warmth of Jake's lips lingered on mine, but instead of the elation I had expected, confusion and doubt clouded my mind. What did this mean for us? I looked at him, and his expression mirrored my turmoil. "Emma, he started, but I raised my hand, cutting him off. "Wait, Jake, just give me a minute." I needed time to sort through the chaos. I felt the weight of his gaze on me, a mix of hope and fear. My mind raced back to all our childhood memories, the laughter and shared secrets. Had we always danced around this line? Were we just blind to what was right in front of us? I turned away, trying to collect my thoughts. Park around us, once a sanctuary of laughter and fun, now felt like a cage. I could hear the distant chatter of other partygoers, but it all faded into a muffled hum. My chest tightened as I questioned everything. Was that kiss a mistake? Did I mean more to him than just a friend? Or had the alcohol blurred the lines too much, leading us both into a moment we'd regret? Jake stepped closer, tension between us palpable. "Emma, I didn't mean to." "Didn't mean to what?" "Kiss me." I shot back, my voice sharper than I intended. Truth was, I was scared. Scared of what this meant for us, scared of ruining the only thing that had ever felt stable in my life. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized as a sign of his nervousness. "I mean, yes, but no. It wasn't just... I've had feelings for you for a while now. I just didn't know how to tell you." My breath caught in my throat. "You have feelings for me? Why didn't you say something before? We've been friends forever." "Because I didn't want to ruin what we had. I thought if I just kept it to myself, we could go on like nothing happened." His voice was filled with desperation, and a part of me wanted to reach out and reassure him, but the fear that gripped me held me back. Now, with my heart racing, I turned to face him. "And what if this changes everything, Jake? What if we end up hating each other because of this?" His eyes softened, and I could see the conflict within him. "I don't think we would, Emma. I can't imagine my life without you. You're my best friend." Best friend. Those words echoed in my mind like a haunting refrain. But can we be more than that? Can we really take this leap without losing everything? "I want to try," he said, his voice firm but laced with vulnerability. "I want you to be mine, Emma. I've wanted that for a long time." Just then, the reality of the situation hit me like a wave. Mia, our mutual friend, had been flitting around the party, laughing and chatting with everyone, including Jake. A pang of jealousy twisted in my gut. What if she saw us together? What if she made a move on him? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. "Jake, what about Mia? She seems really interested in you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked taken aback. "Mia? She's just a friend. I don't feel anything for her like I feel for you. You've always been my number one." I wanted to believe him, but the gnawing insecurity wouldn't let me go that easily. "You say that now, but what if she gets to you first? What if you decide you want to be with her instead?" "Emma, please." His voice was urgent. "You're the one I want. I don't want anyone else." My heart fluttered at his words, but the fear of vulnerability loomed large. I took a step back, shaking my head. "I don't know if I can handle this, Jake. I need time to think." "Time?" he echoed, a mix of disappointment and understanding etched across his face. "I can do that. Please don't shut me out." As I turned away, the weight of my uncertainty hung heavily in the air between us. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into an abyss of the unknown, unsure if I should jump or retreat. The kiss had opened a floodgate of emotions I wasn't ready to face, and the thought of losing Jake, my best friend, terrified me more than anything else. I watched from across the room as Jake laughed with Mia, the new girl who had been hanging around lately. Each chuckle felt like a dagger, twisting in my gut. The way he looked at her, his eyes sparkling with that familiar mischief, made my heart ache with a mix of jealousy and confusion. Why was I feeling this way? I had always thought of Jake as my best friend, my partner in crime, but now, with each passing moment, I couldn't help but wonder if it had always been more than that. "Emma, are you okay?" Mia's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to the present. She was standing beside me, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. I forced a smile, though it felt more like a grimace. "Yeah, I'm fine," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "Just enjoying the party." Mia raised an eyebrow, clearly not convinced. "You sure? You seem a bit distracted. Is it Jake? He's kind of been all over the place tonight." My stomach twisted at her words. "I guess I'm just surprised by how close he's gotten to you," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. The truth stung, but it felt good to say it out loud, even if it was to the girl who seemed to have taken my place beside him. Mia shrugged, playful grin dancing on her lips. "He's fun to be around. I can see why you like him." Her words hit me hard. Did she really think I just liked him? That it was merely a crush? I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. "I don't like him like that," I snapped, a little too harshly. "He's my best friend." And yet there it was, the truth lurking beneath the surface. I had been trying to ignore it, but I couldn't anymore. Kiss we shared, the way it made my heart race, the way it left me breathless, it all meant something more. I needed to clear my head, to escape the chaos of the party and the overwhelming emotions swirling inside me. I stepped outside onto the balcony, hoping the cool night air would help me think. The city lights twinkled below, but they did little to ease the turmoil in my heart. "Emma?" Jake's voice called from behind me. I turned to see him stepping out, his expression a mixture of concern and something else, something I couldn't quite place. "You okay?" "Yeah, just needed some air," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You and Mia seem to be having a good time." He shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable. "She's nice, but you know how it is. Just making conversation. I was actually looking for you." "Really?" I asked, surprised. "Why?" Jake took a step closer, his expression softening. "Because I wanted to see how you were doing. It's been a weird night, hasn't it?" I nodded, feeling the weight of his gaze. "Yeah, weird for sure. That kiss, it changed everything, didn't it?" He looked taken aback, his eyes widening. I didn't mean to make things awkward. I couldn't help it. I've liked you for so long, Emma, and when I saw you with Mia..." "Jake, it's not just about that," I interrupted, my heart racing. "I can't stop thinking about what it all means. We've been friends forever, and now..." I trailed off, unsure of how to voice the whirlwind of feelings inside me. "Now it feels different," he finished for me, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know. I've been trying to figure it out too. But I don't want to lose you." His admission hung in the air between us, heavy and charged. "What if we're risking everything?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What if we ruin what we have?" "Then we'll figure it out together," he said, his eyes locking onto mine with a sincerity that made my heart flutter. "I'd rather take that risk than pretend like nothing happened." In that moment, I realized that my feelings for Jake ran deeper than I had ever allowed myself to acknowledge. But the fear still lingered, gnawing at the edges of my heart. Would it be worth it? Could we navigate this new territory without losing the bond we had built over the years? "I just don't want to get hurt," confessed, my voice barely a whisper. "Neither do I," Jake replied softly, stepping closer. "But I think we owe it to ourselves to explore this, to see where it leads us." I took a deep breath, the weight of his words settling over me. Maybe it was time to confront my feelings, to face the uncertainty of what was to come. After all, love was always a risk. Perhaps it was a leap worth taking. The air was thick with unspoken tension as I entered the gathering at the usual spot, our friend Mark's house. The familiar sounds of laughter and music filled the room. But inside me, all I could hear was the rapid beat of my heart. I scanned the crowd, searching for Jake, hoping to catch his eye and share a smile that could somehow bridge the distance that had grown between us since that fateful kiss. As I stood there, I felt more alone than ever. "Hey Emma, you made it." Mark's cheerful voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. He wrapped me in a friendly hug, but it did little to ease the knot in my stomach. "Where's Jake?" "Not sure," I replied, forcing a smile. "I think he's around here somewhere." As the night wore on, I couldn't help but feel a gnawing sense of frustration. I spotted Jake across the room, laughing with Mia, our mutual friend who always seemed to be a little too eager to get his attention. Each chuckle he shared with her felt like a dagger to my heart. Why did I care so much? Just a few weeks ago, things were simple, just Jake and me, best friends without complications. Now, everything felt so tangled. "Emma," Mia called out, waving me over. "Come join us." I hesitated for a moment, but I forced my legs to carry me toward them. "Hey guys," I said, trying to sound casual. "Look who decided to show up." Jake grinned, but there was something in his eyes, an uncertainty that mirrored my own. You should have seen the joke Mia just told. It was hilarious. Mia leaned into Jake, her laughter ringing out like a siren call. My stomach churned with jealousy, and I could barely focus on what they were saying. I felt like a ghost in my own life, watching everything happen without being part of it. I excused myself for a moment, stepping out onto the balcony for some fresh air. Cool night breeze did little to calm my racing thoughts. What was happening to us? I felt like I was losing him to someone else, and the idea was suffocating. Just as I was about to retreat back inside, I heard footsteps behind me. "Emma?" Jake's voice called out gently, pulling me from my thoughts. I turned to face him, my heart racing. "Hey," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. He stepped closer, his expression serious. "You okay? You've been a little quiet tonight." "I'm fine," I lied, crossing my arms defensively. "Just needed some air." "Right?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "Listen, can we talk about everything?" I nodded slowly, unsure of where this conversation would lead. "Sure, but not out here. Let's go somewhere private." He followed me into the living room, where the music was loud and the laughter echoed off the walls. I could feel my heart pounding as we found a quieter corner. "Emma, Jake started, but the words got caught in his throat. I could see the turmoil in his eyes, the struggle between wanting to say something and holding back. "Just say it, Jake," I urged, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's clearly not." He took a deep breath, his gaze locking with mine. I feel like we're drifting apart, and it scares me. Ever since that kiss, things have changed, and I don't know how to fix it. I felt a rush of emotion, anger and hurt bubbling to the surface. "You think I don't feel that too? You kissed me, and then you act like everything's normal with Mia. Feels like you don't care." "I do care," he exclaimed, his voice rising just a notch. "I just don't know what to do. I thought we could go back to being friends, but it's not that simple anymore." "Maybe it's not what I want." I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "Maybe I don't want to be just friends anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. Jake's eyes widened, and for a moment I could see the realization dawning on him. I didn't know you felt that way," he said, his voice softer now, almost vulnerable. "Of course I do," I admitted, the voice trembling. "But I'm scared. Scared of losing you. Scared of what this all means." Jake stepped closer, expression earnest. "I don't want to lose you either, Emma, but we need to talk about it, figure this out together." Just then, the laughter and music from the party faded into the background, and all I could focus on was Jake standing in front of me, the weight of our unspoken feelings hanging in the air. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my hair for what felt like the 100th time. The anticipation was palpable in the air, and I could hear the soft hum of music drifting from the auditorium where the dance presentation would take place. My heart raced, not from the excitement of performing, but from the hope that tonight might be the night I could finally clarify things between Jake and me. I wanted him to see me, really see me, understand that I still cared deeply for him, despite everything that had happened since that fateful kiss. "Emma, are you ready?" Mia called from the other room, breaking my reverie. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the butterflies in my stomach. "I'm coming," I replied, forcing a smile. My mind raced as I walked to the door. What if Jake didn't show up? What if he had decided that Mia was a better option? The thought made my heart sink, but I pushed it aside. Tonight was about reclaiming my confidence, and if Jake was there, I would use that opportunity to show him how much he meant to me. As we arrived at the auditorium, The energy in the room was electric. Friends and family buzzed with excitement, and the stage was adorned with twinkling lights. My heart skipped a beat when I spotted Jake across the room, laughing with Mia. She leaned in close to him, her laughter ringing out like music. I felt a pang of jealousy, but I quickly shook it off. This was my moment, and I wouldn't let anyone take it from me. "Hey, there's Jake," Mia exclaimed, pulling me towards him. As we approached, I could see him looking at me, his expression shifting from amusement to something more serious. I hoped I could convey my feelings through my dance, that somehow the rhythm of my movements would reach him where words had failed. "Hey, Emma," Jake said, his voice warm and familiar. "You're going to be amazing tonight." He looked genuinely excited, and I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. "Thanks, Jake," replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I really hope you enjoy it." I could feel the weight of his gaze on me, and it sent shivers down my spine. The performance was about to begin, and as I took my place on stage, I focused on the music enveloping me, letting it wash away my doubts. The moment my feet hit the floor, I transformed. I danced with all my heart, pouring every emotion into my movements. I wanted Jake to see me, to realize that I was still here, still the same girl he had known all those years. But as I glanced towards the audience, my heart sank. Mia had pulled Jake toward the front, and they were whispering to each other, her head tilted toward him in a way that made my stomach churn. I felt invisible, even as I danced my heart out. The lights that had once felt like a warm embrace now felt blinding, and the applause that followed my performance seemed distant and hollow. After the final bow, I stepped off the stage, exhilarated but also disheartened. I searched for Jake, desperate for a moment alone with him. I found him still with Mia, their laughter mingling in the air like a taunt. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to speak to him. "Jake," I called, my voice cutting through the chatter. He turned, and for a moment his face lit up with recognition. "Emma, that was incredible," he exclaimed, his eyes sparkling. But before I could respond, Mia interjected, wrapping her arm around his. "Wasn't she amazing, Jake? I told you she'd steal the show." "Yeah, she really did," he agreed. His gaze flickered back to me, and I could see a hint of something deeper beneath the surface. I forced a smile, but it felt strained. "Thanks," I started. But Mia was already pulling him away. "Chat with someone else." I stood there, feeling the emptiness wash over me again. The thrill of performing faded, replaced with a gnawing sense of disappointment. I took a step back, my heart aching. I had hoped for connection, for understanding, and yet here I was, feeling more alone than ever. I thought about how I had tried to reach out to Jake, to spark something new between us, only to feel like I was slipping through his fingers. In that moment, I realized I would have to find the courage to confront this tangled web of feelings. I couldn't hide any longer, not from Jake, and especially not from myself. The atmosphere was electric as I walked off the stage, my heart still pounding from the performance. The applause faded, but the emptiness inside me grew louder. I scanned the crowd, searching for Jake, hoping to catch a glimpse of his supportive smile. Instead, I found him, deep in conversation with Mia, her laughter ringing out like a cruel taunt. Realization twisted in my stomach, a knot of jealousy and hurt tightening its grip. As I approached them, Mia leaned in closer to Jake, her hand playfully brushing against his arm. I felt my breath hitch, a mix of anger and desperation rising within me. "Jake," I called out, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Can we talk?" He turned, surprise flickering across his face, but it was quickly masked by concern. "Yeah, of course, just a sec, Mia." He stepped away from her, and I could see the confusion in his eyes as he followed me to a quieter corner of the venue. "What's going on, Emma?" he asked, his voice low and steady, but I could sense the tension in his posture. I crossed my arms, feeling the weight of my emotions threatening to spill over. "What's going on is that I just danced my heart out up there, and you didn't even seem to notice. You were too busy with Mia." Jake's brow furrowed. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Didn't mean to what?" "Share your time with her." "I thought we were supposed to be in this together," I interrupted, my voice rising. "I thought you were there for me." "Emma, it's not like that," he said, running a hand through his hair, a gesture I'd come to recognize as a sign of his frustration. "I'm not interested in Mia. I was just being polite." "Polite? It looked like more than that." I took a breath, trying to steady myself, but the hurt was spilling out. "You kissed me, Jake. You can't just act like it didn't change everything." "I know it did. That kiss meant something to me, more than you realized." He stepped closer, desperation in his eyes. "But I'm scared, Emma. Scared of losing what we have. What if this ruins our friendship? Is that what you're worried about?" "Because I'm terrified too," I admitted, my heart racing. "What if we never find out what we could be? What if we let fear dictate our lives?" He looked down, his expression pained. "I don't want to hurt you. I can't bear the thought of losing you." "You're not losing me, Jake, but you can't keep pushing me away. I need to know where we stand. Your actions are saying one thing, but your words are saying another," I said, frustration spilling over. "If you really cared, you'd fight for us." "I am fighting," he exclaimed, his voice rising with emotion. I don't know how. I don't want to mess this up." "Then stop hiding behind Mia. She's not the issue here," I replied, my voice softening slightly. "We are. We need to talk about us, not pretend everything's okay." "Okay, you're right. I'm sorry. I'll try to figure this out," he said, his eyes searching mine. "But can we just take a step back? I don't want to rush into something and ruin everything." I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of our conversation settling in. "I get it, but I can't keep pretending that everything's okay when it's not. I need you to be honest with me, Jake." Took a deep breath, his vulnerability shining through. "I promise I'll try. Just give me some time to sort through my feelings. I don't want to lose you." I stepped closer, feeling the warmth radiating from him. "You won't lose me, but we need to be on the same page." He reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "I care about you, Emma, more than I can say." In that moment, the walls around my heart began to crack, revealing the hope I'd buried deep within. We stood there, hand in hand, a fragile connection forged between us. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still standing on the edge of something uncertain. I felt hollow. A strange emptiness settled in my chest after I made the decision to take a step back from Jake. The silence in my apartment was deafening, the absence of his laughter echoing in my mind like a haunting melody. I curled up on the couch, staring at the wall, my thoughts racing. Memories of our time together flooded back. His playful teasing, our late-night talks, the way he always knew how to make me smile. Now, all I felt was the gnawing ache of loneliness. Why did I think this would help? I whispered to myself, burying my face in a pillow. The truth was, I didn't want to lose him, but the fear of what could happen if I let my feelings grow was paralyzing. I wanted to scream, to shake off this uncertainty. The words remained lodged in my throat. Days passed, each one feeling longer than the last. I filled my time with dance rehearsals and hanging out with my friends. Yet, every time I laughed or smiled, part of me felt like it was missing. I caught myself glancing at my phone, willing it to buzz with a message from Jake. But nothing came. It was as if he had vanished from my life, and every moment of quiet only amplified my regret. One afternoon, I decided to grab a coffee at the little cafe around the corner. Maybe a change of scenery would do me good. As I entered, the familiar smell of roasted beans and baked pastries enveloped me, but it wasn't enough to lift my spirits. I ordered my usual and found a spot by the window, watching people bustle by, each absorbed in their own lives. Suddenly, my heart raced. There he was, Jake, sitting at a table across the room, his head buried in a book. He looked up, and for a moment our eyes met. I felt a jolt of electricity pass between us, as if the world around us faded away. But then he looked down again, and the connection shattered. I took a deep breath, my palms sweating as I fought the urge to walk over. I couldn't just sit here and pretend everything was okay, could I? But what would I say? My heart pounded in my chest, familiar rhythm of anxiety returning with a vengeance. "Emma?" I heard a voice pull me from my thoughts. It was Mia, one of our mutual friends. She slid into the seat across from me, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What's up? You look distant." "Just thinking," I replied, forcing a smile. "About things." Mia raised an eyebrow, a knowing look crossing her face. "Is it about Jake? I saw him earlier. He looked kind of lost." I felt a pang in my chest at her words. "Yeah, well, I don't know. I thought it was best to give him space." Mia shook her head. "Space? You two have always been inseparable. Why would you want to distance yourself now?" I'm scared, Mia. scared of what could happen if I let this go any further, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. What if we ruin everything? Mia leaned closer, her expression softening. Emma, love is always a risk, but you'll never know unless you take that leap. You two are meant for each other. Just look at him. She gestured subtly toward Jake, who was now looking out the window with a pensive expression. Her words weighed heavily on my heart. I know, but what if he doesn't feel the same? What if I'm just fooling myself? Or what if you're missing out on the best thing that could ever happen to you? Mia countered, her eyes piercing into mine. You deserve happiness. Don't let fear dictate your choices. I nodded slowly, truth in her words settling deep within me. I needed to confront my feelings instead of running away. I glanced at Jake again, and this time, our eyes locked for a heartbeat longer. The world around us faded, and I could see the flicker of hope in his gaze, a reflection of my own. I need to talk to him, I said, a new determination rising within me. Then go, Mia urged, her smile encouraging. You'll never regret being honest. With a final deep breath, I stood up, my heart racing as I made my way toward him. The cafe felt smaller, the distance between us shrinking with each step. As I approached, I could see the surprise on his face when he noticed me. Hey Emma, he said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. I didn't expect to see you here. Can we talk? I asked, my voice steady despite the whirlwind in my chest. Yeah, of course, he replied, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. As we sat down together, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. But for the first time in days, I also felt a flicker of hope. I stood by the window, watching the rain cascade down the glass, each droplet a reminder of the storm brewing in my heart. The world outside was gray and dreary, but inside me, emotions surged like a tempest. After everything that had happened, I knew I had to confront my feelings for Jake. It felt like a weight pressing down on me, and I couldn't breathe until I faced it. Taking a deep breath, I picked up my phone and stared at Jake's name. My fingers hovered hesitantly over the screen. What if he didn't feel the same? What if I was just chasing a fantasy? But the thought of not knowing was unbearable. I typed out a quick message. Hey, can we talk? I need to see you. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Sure. Where do you want to meet? Relief washed over me, but it was quickly followed by a wave of anxiety. I decided on the park, a place filled with memories of laughter and innocence. It was the perfect backdrop for what I hoped would be a turning point for us. When I arrived, the air was crisp and the scent of wet earth filled my lungs. I spotted Jake sitting on a bench, his figure slightly hunched as he stared at the ground. My heart raced as I approached him. Hey, I said softly, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. He looked up, and for a moment our eyes locked. There was a vulnerability in his gaze that made my heart ache. Hey, Emma. He patted the space next to him, and I sat down, feeling the warmth of his presence envelop me. I've been thinking a lot about us, I began, my voice wavering slightly, about what happened at the party and, well, everything. The words spilled out before I could stop myself. Jake shifted in his seat, his brow furrowing. Yeah, me too. I've been replaying that moment over and over in my head. I didn't mean to. I just couldn't help it. Neither could I admitted, my cheeks flushing. But it scared me, you know? I've always valued our friendship, and now I'm terrified of ruining it. I feel the same way, he confessed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized as a sign of his nerves. But I can't ignore what I felt when I kissed you. It was real, Emma. I want to figure this out together, but I don't want to lose you either. His words sent a rush of warmth through me, but the shadows of doubt still loomed. What if we can't go back to how things were? What if we fail? I looked down, tracing the patterns on the bench with my fingers, unable to meet his gaze. Emma, he said gently, turning to face me fully. What if we succeed? What if what we have is worth the risk? I could hear the sincerity in his voice, each word wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. My heart raced as I contemplated his question. You're right, I've been so focused on the fear of losing you that I forgot to think about what we could gain. I took a deep breath, my resolve strengthening. I want to be honest with you about my feelings. I've liked you for so long, Jake. Terrifying, but I can't pretend anymore. He leaned closer, his eyes searching mine. You have no idea how much that means to me, Emma. I've been scared to tell you how I feel, thinking you'd never want to risk our friendship, but now that I know you feel the same, I want to try. I want to see where this leads us." His words ignited a spark of hope within me. I felt lighter, as if the storm within was beginning to dissipate. "Together?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Together," he affirmed, a smile breaking across his face. It was a smile that melted away the last remnants of my doubt. As we sat there, a sense of calm washed over us, the world around us fading into the background. I realized that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Jake by my side, I felt ready to embrace whatever came next. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive, unburdened by fear, and open to the possibilities of love. The tension in the air was palpable as I sat across the dining table from my parents, clinking of silverware and muffled conversations of family members fading into a distant hum. My heart raced, not just from the impending conversation, but from the weight of unspoken words lingering between Jake and me. We had spent the last few weeks navigating the tumultuous waters of our feelings for each other. And now, with our families gathered around us, I felt like a tightrope walker, teetering on the brink of a fall. "Emma, have you and Jake thought about what's next for you two?" my mother asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity but also concern. I could feel Jake's gaze shift toward me, his expression a mixture of apprehension and hope. I swallowed hard, trying to find the right words to answer her. "We're just figuring things out," I replied cautiously, glancing at Jake for support. He nodded subtly, his jaw clenched, as if he too was bracing for the inevitable. "Figuring things out? That sounds a bit vague, doesn't it?" My dad chimed in, his tone teasing but underscored with seriousness. "You've known each other forever. I thought you'd have a clearer picture by now." I could feel my cheeks flush with embarrassment. "It's complicated," I mumbled, looking down at my plate. I could hear Jake shifting in his seat, and I could sense the weight of his thoughts pressing against the silence that hung between us. "Complicated? We're just afraid." My mother's voice softened, almost a whisper, but it cut through the noise of the crowd. I felt the heat rise in my chest, a mix of frustration and fear. Did she truly understand the depth of our situation? "Mom," I started, my voice trembling slightly. "It's not that simple. Jake and we've been best friends for so long. Everything changed after that night at the party. I don't want to lose him, and I don't know us." "Emma, I get it," Jake interjected, his voice steady but low, filled with an intensity that made my heart skip. "But it's not just about fear, it's about what we both want. And right now, what we want is to be honest about it." The room seemed to shrink around us as all eyes turned to Jake. I could see my mother's brow furrow, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "Honesty is essential, but you also need to consider the implications," she said gently. "You're both at an age where decisions have weight. Like the decision to date your best friend, right?" I retorted, my frustration bubbling to the surface. "How do you expect us to just decide? It's not like flipping a switch." Jake reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Emma, we have to talk about this." He took a deep breath, his gaze steady on mine. "Your parents care about you. They just want to make sure we're not making a mistake." "Exactly," my father chimed in. "You both need to think about how this will affect your friendship. If things don't work out, it could ruin everything." I felt a lump form in my throat as I glanced at Jake. Fear of losing what we had was a bitter pill to swallow. "We know that," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But we can't ignore what's happening between us. It's real." "Then why don't you talk to each other about it?" my mother urged, her eyes softening. "Don't let the fear of the unknown dictate your choices. You owe it to yourselves to explore this." Jake nodded, his gaze unwavering. "We've been trying, but every time we take a step forward, something pulls us back." He looked at me, his expression vulnerable. "I just want you to know that I'm here, regardless of what happens." The sincerity in his voice brought tears to my eyes. I turned back to my parents, who were watching us intently, their expressions a mix of concern and understanding. "We're going to figure this out, I promise," my voice gaining strength. "But it's going to take time. We just need your support and understanding." "Of course, honey," my father replied, his tone softening. "We just want what's best for both of you." As I looked at Jake, I felt a surge of hope. Maybe we could navigate this together, despite the pressures lurking on the periphery. I squeezed his hand back, a silent promise that we would face whatever came next, side by side. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the park, Jake led me to a spot that felt both familiar and foreign. It was the place where we had spent countless afternoons as kids, chasing each other around trees, laughing until our sides hurt. But today, it held a different kind of magic, a weight that made my heart race and my palms sweat. "Emma?" Jake began, his voice a mixture of nervousness and determination. "I wanted to bring you here because this place holds so many memories for us. But I need to make new ones, the kind that reflect how I really feel about you." I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. "Jake, I've been so scared. After everything that's happened, I didn't know if we could go back to what we had. I mean, what if it doesn't work? What if we lose everything?" He stepped closer, looking deep into my eyes. "But what if it does work? What if we find something even more incredible together? I've spent too long hiding my feelings, and I can't do that anymore. I love you, Emma. I've always loved you." His confession hung in the air like an unfinished song, and I felt tears well up in my eyes. I had fought so hard against these feelings, terrified of losing my best friend. But now, hearing his words, I felt a flood of relief and joy wash over me. "I love you too, Jake," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I've always been afraid to admit it, afraid of ruining what we had, but I can't ignore it anymore. You mean everything to me." As those words left my lips, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Jake's face broke into a smile that lit up the fading sunlight. He stepped forward, wrapping his arms around me, pulling me into a warm embrace. I melted into him, feeling the safety and love radiate between us. "I've wanted this for so long," he murmured into my hair. "It's like I can finally breathe again." We stood there, wrapped in each other's warmth, until the sounds of laughter and chatter from our friends drifted into our moment. Still holding me close, Jake leaned back slightly, looking into my eyes. "Are you ready for this? Because I want to shout it from the rooftops. I don't want to hide anymore." I nodded, my heart soaring. "Yes, let's do this together. I want everyone to know how we feel." With that, we walked hand in hand back towards our friends, the anticipation of the moment making every step feel like an adventure. As we approached, I spotted Mia, who immediately noticed our intertwined fingers and raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. "Looks like someone made a decision," she teased lightly, but I could see the genuine happiness in her eyes. Jake grinned, pulling me closer. "You have no idea how long we've waited for this moment." Once we reached our friends, Jake cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Hey everyone, Emma and I have something we want to share." Group fell silent, curiosity peeking in their expression. I felt my cheeks flush as Jake continued. "We've decided to take our friendship to the next level. We're together now." Chorus of cheers erupted, friends clapping and congratulating us. I felt a rush of warmth and love surround us, and a sense of relief washed over me. "Finally," Mia shouted, throwing her arms around us both. "I knew you two were meant to be." As the celebrations continued, I caught Jake's eye, and we exchanged a knowing smile. In that moment, surrounded by our friends and feeling their support, I realized that we had not only embraced our love, but had also found a new family in each other. With laughter echoing around us and the promise of a bright future ahead, I felt a surge of hope. I took a deep breath and whispered to Jake, "No more hiding, right?" He nodded, squeezing my hand. "No more hiding, just us." And with that, we stepped into this new chapter together, ready to face whatever challenges awaited us, stronger and more united than ever. Ever feel like something's missing, even when everything seems right? Mia met Jake, and every note of his song held a hidden secret. But what does this encounter really mean? And what will Mia have to give up? Don't miss the start of this intriguing story. Click on the video that's popping up on your screen to find out.